All right, everybody, here we go with the third recording for lesson 20. Um, and let's just get started. All right, so everyone should be on page 431. 431. And again, throughout this, if I'm going too fast, the beauty of this is you can just pause me yourself. All right, here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and read this, and then if you would like, as I'm reading it, the part that I'd like you to get down in your book is right here. I guess I'd call it your packet. I would like the work here to be written down, all right, but I'm going to explain it as we go along. Okay, so it says Cyrus is hosting a dinner to celebrate Nowruz, the Persian New Year. His groceries cost $150 before he uses a 10% off coupon. He also orders $60 worth of flowers. Sales tax on the flowers is 6.25%. What is the total amount Cyrus spends? All right, so it would be really easy to get overwhelmed, I think, looking at a problem like that. So a really good strategy is the second time you read it, and I'm a fan of 3 reads actually, but let's try this the second time through. Let's break it apart into steps. And you can see I've actually already done that over here. So Cyrus is hosting a dinner. Okay, his groceries cost $150 before he uses a 10% off coupon. All right, so first step, let's determine the price of the groceries. Second step, he also orders $60 worth of flowers. Sales tax on the flowers is 6.25%. Then what's the total amount? So second thing to do is to determine the price of the flowers and then add the two together. All right, now, interesting thing, in case you didn't know, on most groceries, you do not have to pay sales tax. Some you do. But if there is any food that is considered necessary for survival, like basic groceries, you don't have to pay tax on it. And something interesting to do is look up at some point, what are the sales tax rates in the state of Maine? So most groceries, nothing. All right, anyway, here we go. So first of all, he got 10% off. So basically 10% of 150 is 15, so we got $15 off. So he pays $135 for the groceries. Then for the flowers, we had to figure out, well, what is 6.25% of 60? That's $375. So then I added that to the 60, so $63.75. And then for the last thing, we'll add these two together. So 135 plus 63.75 is $198.75. All right, so if you don't already have it in, get this in on page 431. All right, now let's look at this because they have some interesting things that we are going to use to save us time. All right, if we can save time in math, we should do it. All right, so let's take a look at page 432. Here's a bar model here that is split into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 groups. All right, so each of these represents 10%. We already know 10% is 15. So if you have 10% off, it's really the same as 90% of something. And I think this bar model shows it really quite well. Here's the entire thing. We're lopping off this 15. Well, that leaves 9 of them. So 90% of 150 is the same as 10% off. So what I'd like you to write somewhere on page 432 is the math here. Figuring out 90% of 150 is 0.9 times 150. It's still 135, which we figured out on the previous page. So 10% off is the same as 90% of. It's like, what? 10% taken off is the same as 90% of. All right, I'm hoping that makes sense because it's going to save us some time. All right, now look at this next model. This one, if you have to pay extra, you're really paying over 100% the cost of the item that you're buying. All right, so if Cyrus is paying 6.25% in sales tax, we can think of this as he's paying 100% plus 6.25% more. All right, so I want you to think about this as 6.25% more is the same as 100% plus 6.25%. All right, so again, we'll talk about this more, but what we really figured out when we were figuring out how much the flowers cost altogether is what is 106.25% of them. And the nice thing about doing this right away is it avoids that step of addition. This really will save us time. Now, if you don't quite get this, don't worry. I would like you to write this, though, on page 432 somewhere. We will be going over this more in the next couple of problems. All right, moving along. All right, on the model it, all right, this is the way we did it. All right, so we actually figured out the percentages and then figured out what the cost of the groceries was and then what the cost of the flowers was. Well, you still need to add them together. All right, so I would like you to write this down, and we got a total of 198.75. All right, next. All right, we are skipping problems 1 and 2 because they're quite redundant. All right, we've already answered those things twice. So we're skipping along to number 3. All right, so number 3 on page 433, you can cross out 1 and 2. Okay, so Hiroaki uses the expression A minus 1/10 of A, or 0.1A, to represent a 10% discount on amount A. Alan uses the expression 9/10 of A, or 0.9A. Is Hiroaki's expression correct? Is Alan's correct? Explain. All right, well, both expressions are correct. All right, so I would like you to write this part that's in the red. Both expressions are correct because they're equal. Now, I wrote this 1 in front of the A. This is not really the correct mathematical form, but I put that there just to remind you when there is no variable in front of, when there's no number in front of the variable, there's really a 1 in front of it. All right, so that's what I wrote right here. So this would be the same as 1A minus 1/10 A. Well, that's actually going to be 9/10. Oops, I should have put an A here. 9/10 A. All right, so make sure you write that A in there. All right, this is combining like terms. Remember that from algebra? All right, so both correct, both the same thing, really. All right, let's move on to number 4. Hiroaki uses this expression A plus 0.05A to represent an amount increasing by 5%. Alan uses the expression 1.05A. Explain why both Hiroaki's and Alan's expressions are correct. You can just write this, very similar to what we just did. A plus 0.05A is equal to 1.05A. All right, let's get that in for number 4 if you don't. All right, moving along. All right, number 5. It says the expression 110 times 0.80 can be used to find the sale price of an item that has an original price of $110. By what percent is the original price marked down, and how do you know? All right, here's what I'd like you to get in on number 5. Multiplying by 0.80 indicates that you are paying for 80% of the cost. That means it must be 20% off. So real quickly, just review then. 100% is all of something, so 100 minus 80 is 20. Anytime you're thinking about percents, be thinking 100. It's got something to do with 100. All right, that's it for number 5. All right, I'm moving along. All right, so page 434. All right, let's do some application of this. Yeah, I know you've done some work now on commission. All right, so here's a commission question. Alana earns a commission of 8% on her sales. How much commission does Alana earn on a sale of $32,000? All right, so what we need to figure out is what is 8% of 32,000? Change the percent to a decimal and multiply. And you can see I did that over here in the calculator. I have $2,560, right? 8% of 32,000. All right. All right, once that's in, let's move ahead. All right, number 8, you can see I've already got the correct answer. So if you want to be writing that down, here's the question. And I want this written down as well. Heidi's lunch cost $12.50. Heidi wants to leave a tip of 18%. How much money does Heidi need to pay for lunch, including the tip? All right, so you guys, I did do this one in one step. The lunch plus the tip, right? Well, that's 118%. Here's why. The lunch is 100%. That's the whole thing. The tip is 18%, right? So just to figure this out in one step, we can just add those together. Right, so I'm using the 118% to just let me know right away what the total cost is. So what we're figuring out is what is 118% of $12.50 So 1.18 times 1250, and it equals 1475. You should have been pretty quickly able to knock those two off because they're less than 1250, right? Of course, if you're paying a tip, it's more. All right, so there you have it, letter C. All right, number 9, bears in hibernation. All right, so I'm going to read this for you, and then I'm going to show you 2 ways to figure this out. And you can write down either option, doesn't matter. One of the options is all you need to write here. Figure out which one you want to do. All right, so it says before hibernation, a bear weighs 990 pounds. Its weight decreases by 32% during hibernation. How much does the bear weigh when it comes out of hibernation? Show your work. Okay, so the first thing I did is I figured out, okay, 32% of 990 is 316.8. That means that's how much the bear loses during hibernation. So then I just took the original weight, 990, subtracted 316.8, and I got that this bear weighs 673.2 pounds. All right, this one, option 2, note I got the same answer. But what I did is, well, I figured out, well, if this bear has lost 32% of its weight, then how much weight does it still have? Well, it still has 68%. I just did a quick 100 minus 32. So 100 minus 30 is 70, and then take away 2 more, so that lands you at 68. So 68% of 990 is 0.68 times 990. I did that right here in the calculator and got the same answer. All right, so choose whichever option you want to write. All right, and you only need one of them. Excellent. All right, here we go. All right, let's take a look at page 435. Again, this is application, and that's what this entire lesson is pretty much about, is application. All right, so let's say the sales tax at a hotel is 18%. That's actually pretty typical for lodgings, pretty high sales tax, all right? A standard room costs $98 before tax. What is the total cost of a standard room? All right, so the price of the room, $98 plus the 18, so they're doing it the same way we just did. 118% of 98 gives you $115.64. All right, let's take a look at number 1. So here's what I want you to write under number 1. There's 2 steps that we're going to use here, okay? It says the hotel in the example offers a double room for $20 more than a standard room before tax. What is the total cost of the double room including tax? And then show your work. Okay, so before tax it was $98. Adding $20 gives you $118. Weird, all right? So here's what we need to figure out then. What is 118% of 118? So we just use the 1.18, multiply it by 118, and the cost is $139.24. Okay, note they figured out the sale price first, then did the tax. That is how it works in the real world. Sale price is figured out first, the tax is paid on the sale price. All right, let's continue on. All right, so it says Darnell wants to limit his screen time. Last week, he spent an average of 3.5 hours on his phone each day. This week, he reduces his screen time by 5%. To the nearest hour, how much time does Darnell spend on his phone this week? Show your work. So you guys, what I want you to do is just get this right here that I'm putting in the box, okay? So if he reduces his screen time by 5%, then he's still on his phone 95% of that time, right? Because these two add up to 100. So we want to figure out what's 95% of 3.5. So then I used my calculator to do this. 0.95 times 3.5 is 3.325 hours. And since they said round to the nearest hour, he spent about 3 hours. All right, now that's not all that precise. All right, so this here, I would just like you to listen to real quickly. It's like, what if you needed more precision here? All right, so here's what I figured out. This 0.325 right here actually will tell me the number of minutes that he was on the phone. So I know he was 3 hours and some number of minutes. Well, really, he is 325 thousandths of an hour here. That's what that means. So what I can do is just take the decimal and multiply it by 60, since there's 60 minutes in an hour. And he is basically on the phone in the minute part, 19.5. So to be precise, 3 hours, 19 minutes, and 30 seconds. Awesome.